Kettlebell swing's a great lower body power exercise that also does a pretty good job of getting into our hamstrings, glutes, and into our core musculature. Now, it is a fairly advanced progression compared to something like a kettlebell deadlift, and I'd recommend usually any of my clients to learn that first. And so that's just a note that if you haven't mastered the hinge, so bending at the waist well, under load, then this is not a great place to be. But fundamentally, we're here to learn the swing. So let's talk about the main issue with the swing is one, how to do it, and then two, how to make sure that it doesn't light up your lower back. So keys to setting up the swing. What I like to do is I like to grab a bell and actually place it a little bit further away from me so that when I get my feet about hip width, if not a little bit wider, I turn my toes out a little bit, just to a point where I feel stable. If I'm rocking back and forth, if my toes are too forward, I'll feel like I'm getting pushed forward and back onto my heels and onto my toes. So I'm just finding enough toe out to feel stable. And then from there, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna stand tall. I'm going to bend at the waist and reach for the bell. Tip it on its side. So now I'm drawing my shoulders down away from my ears, very much like a deadlift, but a deadlift that starts far away from me. So by drawing my shoulders down, I'm creating tons of tension through my midsection, and I'm gonna hike it behind me to get this started like a football. So tension, push through the floor, hike. Stopping when the bell reaches my shoulder, and to set it down, I'm gonna let it down through my legs and forward. All right, so let's talk about the key points to not lighting up your lower back in the swing. And it's very much about the finish position, what happens there, and how we organize ourselves. So I like to tell people to start where they're gonna finish. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna try to figure out where our finish position is for the swing. So we're gonna take a second to find our foot position. We're gonna turn our toes out slightly. So I got my feet about hip width, toes turned out, like maybe 10, 20 degrees. And then from there, I'm gonna raise my hands to about shoulder height. I keep a little bend at the elbow, but I still keep my arms pretty long. I pull my shoulders down, and then I make sure that my legs are as long as possible. So they're straight, they're locked out. Like I have tension in my quads. I'm pushing through the ground so hard. And then from there, this lets me drop my ribs and create some tension. So I like to call this the poke test. Someone just come along and try to poke you in the stomach, you'd be able to resist. So instinctively, you kind of create some tension. So as my hands are in place, poke test ready, pushing through the ground, this is where I want to finish. I'm not going to go any further than this. This is where the bell stops. So now that I figured that out, if I pull my hands down and keep them above my knees, close to the jewels, shoulders stay down, and I let the bell pull behind me, almost like I'm trying to hit myself in the butt or trying to shoot it back to the back wall, this is my finish position. So you can tell this looks very similar to the bottom of a deadlift, at least close to it. So I push through the ground to stand up, and I let it swing through, keeping the bell close, allowing the bell to pull behind me towards the back wall or hit myself in the butt. So that's your start, that's your finish. That's where we want to come back to every single time. So when we set up the swing, biggest thing that we're looking for is making sure that we stop it in the right spot. So that's going to be, again, where we just demoed. So shoulder height, set it up, tip it on its side. Shoulders get pulled down to create tension. I'm almost pulling myself away from the bell. Then I'm going to hike it behind me. Stop at the shoulder, bend at the waist. If you are not doing this, then what that will look like is this arching motion, or if we're going too low, something like that. Doesn't look right because it isn't right. So hands above the knees, keep it close, finish when the bell is in line with the shoulder. That's how you can keep your lower back in good shape. a common fault that I see with the kettlebell swing is keeping too much tension through the arm and not allowing momentum to carry the bell. We want to imagine like when we're swinging, the arms are like hooks. So if we imagine like ropes as the arm and then hooks on the end, we want the bell to pull the ropes taut. But other than that, when you have a rope, you can't lift anything with it. You've got to use the leverage of whatever that rope is attached to, which is really your upper body. So in that case, we want to make sure that when we're swinging, we're not staying rigid through the arm trying to swing. We're allowing it to move fluidly. So you can tell that there's a little bit of bend in my elbow when I'm swinging, and that allows me to figure out where I can keep it going with this push through the floor and snap, which creates momentum and keeps the bell swinging. And the thing that keeps the bell swinging is not your arms. It is entirely this snap or push through the floor, which is basically you doing what is very similar to a jump in the air. So keep that in context when you are swinging. All we're doing is a deadlift, so bend at the waist, with a violent push. Arms are like ropes, there's hooks on the end, and that is what keeps your bell moving in the air. Hope that helps.